I was 42 years old when I learned that one bad night could unravel everything my family built. The man I beat down outside that parking garage, bloodied, broken on the concrete, wasn't some random nobody. He was someone whose name alone could open doors I didn't even know existed. And when those doors started opening, everything changed. My empire didn't just crack. It shattered. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. My name is Victor, and I run one of the most respected operations in the Northeast. Respect. That's what I built my whole life around. My crew answers to me. The streets know my name. Politicians know better than to cross me. That's power. Or at least, that's what I thought it was. It was a Thursday night in March when everything started. I was leaving Marcello's, this upscale Italian place downtown where we handled business. The kind of place where nobody asks questions and the owner knows to look the other way. I'd just finished a meeting with some associates about a territory dispute. Nothing major. Just the usual back and forth about who controlled what. I was walking to my car, a black Mercedes, always the black Mercedes, when I heard the voice behind me. Hey, you. Yeah, you in the coat. I didn't even turn around at first. People don't usually talk to me like that. When they do, it doesn't end well for them. But something in that voice, it was different. It wasn't scared. It wasn't trying to impress me. It was just angry. Raw. I turned. This older guy was standing there. Maybe late 60s, early 70s. Gray hair, strong build. The kind of strong that comes from decades of discipline, not from hitting a gym 3 times a week. He was wearing a simple navy jacket and jeans. He didn't look like he belonged in this part of town, and he definitely didn't look like someone who'd approach me. Behind him was a woman, younger, maybe mid-30s. She looked terrified. Her name was Eliza. I'd find out later. His daughter. You know who I am? I asked him. I wasn't being arrogant. I was genuinely curious why this man was talking to me like I was nobody. I don't care who you are, he said. I know what you are. And I know what you did to that kid last month. My chest went cold for a second. Then hot. He was talking about Preston, some 20-year-old from the neighborhood whose family owed us money. Preston had tried to run. We found him. I made sure he understood what happens when you disrespect the agreement. You have no idea what you're talking about, I said. But I stepped closer. My security was inside, but I could handle one old man. My grandson was friends with him, the old guy said. His voice never wavered. That boy came home with 3 broken ribs and a collapsed lung. 14 years old, Victor. 14. He knew my name. He knew details. This wasn't random. You need to walk away, I told him. Not a threat, just a statement. A final warning. But he didn't walk away. And his daughter grabbed his arm, begging him to stop, to please just leave, but he shook her off. I spent 40 years in service to this country, he said. I've seen real evil, real darkness, and I'm not going to watch it happen to kids in my own neighborhood and do nothing about it. Something snapped in me. Maybe it was the way he said it. Maybe it was the fact that he wasn't backing down. Maybe it was just the night, the mood I was in. I hit him. 1 punch. That's all it took. He went down hard, his head hitting the concrete. I could see blood on the pavement. His daughter screamed. She was on her knees next to him, crying, trying to help him up. I stood there for a second, breathing hard, feeling that familiar rush of power. Then I walked to my car and drove away. I didn't think about it again until 3 days later. That's when the FBI showed up at my house. I remember the sound of the doorbell that morning. It wasn't aggressive, just a normal ring. But somehow it felt different. My wife Morgan was still asleep upstairs. My kids were at school. It was just me, coffee in hand, standing in my kitchen when I heard it. 2 men in dark suits. One older, one younger. Both with that unmistakable federal look. The kind of calm authority that comes from knowing they have the law on their side. Victor Dominic? The older one asked. He already knew the answer. Who's asking? Special Agent Colin Richardson, FBI. This is Agent Blake Turner. We need to talk about an incident that occurred 3 nights ago in the parking garage on Madison Street. My stomach didn't drop. I'd been through this before. Different reasons, but I knew how to handle it. Say nothing. Lawyer up. Wait for them to show their hand. I don't know what you're talking about, I said. Agent Richardson didn't seem bothered. He just pulled out his phone and showed me a picture. It was security footage from the garage. Me, throwing that punch. The old man going down. His daughter screaming. This man's name is Admiral James Mitchell, Richardson said, watching my face carefully. Retired. 38 years in the Navy. Last 15 years, he was Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence. The coffee cup felt heavy in my hand. The victim is also connected to several ongoing federal investigations, Richardson continued. Investigations that involve national security. Which means, Victor, this isn't just assault. This is interfering with a federal witness. And that changes things significantly. I still didn't say anything. But inside, my mind was racing. An admiral. Not some random old man concerned about the neighborhood. A federal witness. Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence. I'd made a mistake. A serious one. Where's your lawyer? Agent Turner asked. He had a slight smirk, like he already knew I was going to need one. Get out of my house, I said. Both of you. And don't come back without a warrant. They left. But not before Richardson placed a card on my kitchen counter. When you're ready to talk, he said, give me a call. I didn't call him. Instead, I called Julian, my lawyer. Julian was expensive and good at what he did. He'd gotten me out of 3 serious situations before. But when I told him what happened, when I mentioned the name Admiral Mitchell in the FBI, I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. Fear. Victor, do you understand what you've done? He asked. Mitchell isn't just some retired military guy. He's connected to people at the highest levels of government. Justice Department, Pentagon, CIA. This man has contacts that make mayors and governors nervous. So what do? You wait, Julian said. You let me make some calls. And you pray that Mitchell decides not to press charges. Because if he does, and if the federal government decides to make an example out of you, Victor, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. You're looking at federal prison time. Real time. Not the local stuff you're used to. I hung up and sat in my kitchen for a long time. That afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mr. Dominic? This is Eliza Mitchell, James's daughter. I'm calling because my father wanted me to. He's still in the hospital. He has a fractured skull and internal bleeding. The doctors say he's stable, but it was close. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the exhaustion underneath it. What do you want? I asked. My father doesn't want to press charges, she said. He never wanted this to go to the FBI. But I did. I called them because I thought they should know what kind of man you are. What you do to people. She paused. But he's asking me to call you. He wants to meet with you. He says there are things you need to understand. Things about who he is, who I am, and what's about to happen to you. Why would I meet with him? Because, Eliza said quietly, he's the only person who can help you now. And he's willing to. I don't know why, but he is. She gave me an address. A private hospital room on the east side of the city. I knew something was wrong. Every instinct I had was telling me this was a setup. But I also knew Julian was right. I needed something. Some kind of play. Some way out. So I went. When I walked into that hospital room, Admiral Mitchell was sitting up in bed. His head was wrapped in bandages. His left eye was bruised, swollen shut. He looked fragile, breakable. But when he looked at me, there was something in that one good eye that made me understand, for the first time, that I'd made a mistake that couldn't be undone. Sit down, Victor, he said. His voice was rough, but still commanding. I need to tell you who I really am. And then I'm going to tell you what's about to happen. I sat in that hospital chair, waiting for Admiral Mitchell to speak. The machines around his bed beeped quietly. Outside the window, the city looked normal. People going about their lives, unaware that mine was collapsing in real time. My name is James Mitchell, he started, his voice measured and deliberate. But that's not who I am. Not really. That's just the name on the retirement papers and the pension checks. He shifted slightly, wincing. The movement cost him. For 38 years, I served in naval intelligence. The last 15, I was deputy director. I've worked with presidents, senators, generals. I've been inside situations you can't even imagine, Victor. I've seen classified information that would make your head spin. And more importantly, he paused, looking directly at me with that one good eye. I've made enemies at every level of government and beyond. I didn't say anything. I was trying to understand where this was going. 3 years ago, I retired, Mitchell continued. I wanted out. I wanted to be a grandfather. I wanted to teach my grandson about honor and integrity. I wanted to live a quiet life. He smiled bitterly. But the government doesn't really let people like me just disappear. And neither do the people I've worked against. What are you saying? I asked finally. I'm saying that you hit a man who's currently under federal protection, Mitchell said. Not protective custody. That's different. I'm under active protection because there are certain entities, foreign governments, criminal organizations, people in power who want me dead or silenced, who would very much like to see me disappear. The FBI assigned agents to monitor my movements. The Pentagon has contractors watching my house. The CIA keeps tabs on my communications. I'm not just a retired admiral, Victor. I'm a walking intelligence asset. My mouth went dry. When you hit me, you didn't just commit assault, Mitchell said. You created a federal incident. You threatened the security of a protected witness. And you did it in front of surveillance cameras that the government had already been monitoring. Within 2 hours of that attack, the FBI knew exactly who you were, what you did, and where to find you. So why didn't they arrest me? I asked. Because I asked them not to, Mitchell said. Yet. There was that word. Yet. My daughter is furious with me, he continued. She called the FBI out of anger, out of a desire to see you punished. She wants justice for what you've done to people in our community. And I understand that. But I'm not interested in justice through the legal system. Not anymore. I've seen how that works. I've seen how people like you operate within it. He leaned forward slightly, despite the obvious pain it caused him. There are people higher up than the FBI who want to talk to you. Victor, Mitchell said quietly. People from the Justice Department. People from Homeland Security. There's a man named Nathaniel Quinn. He's a federal prosecutor with connections to every major law enforcement agency in the country. He specializes in organized crime with ties to national security. He's been building a case against you for 2 years. Your assault on me gave him the opening he needed. What kind of case? I asked, though I already knew the answer was bad. Money laundering connected to foreign operations. Trafficking. Protection rackets targeting federal witnesses. And now, assault on a federal asset. Mitchell paused. But here's the thing, Victor. Quinn doesn't actually want to prosecute you. Not yet. He wants to use you. Use me for what? To get to the people above you, Mitchell said. You're mid-level management in a much larger organization. Quinn knows that. The FBI knows that. What they want is the structure above you. They want names. They want transactions. They want the people who pull your strings. I felt cold. This was bigger than I'd thought. This wasn't about the beating. This was about everything. If I cooperate, I asked carefully, then maybe you survive this, Mitchell said. Maybe your family doesn't lose everything. Maybe your wife doesn't end up alone, trying to explain to your kids why their father is in federal prison. And if I don't? Mitchell didn't answer for a moment. He just looked at me with an expression that was almost pitying. Then Quinn makes an example out of you, he said finally. He puts together a case so airtight that your lawyer won't even bother going to trial. You plead guilty to everything, and you spend the next 20 years thinking about how one punch changed your life forever. And the organization you work for? They don't care. They move on. They find someone else to take the fall. There was a knock on the door. A nurse came in, checked Mitchell's vitals, and left without saying anything. I didn't call you here to torture you, Mitchell said once she was gone. I called you here because I'm giving you a choice. A real one. Most people don't get that. Most people just wake up one day and find out their life is over. Why would you do that? I asked. Why would you help me? Mitchell was quiet for a long time. Because I spent 38 years believing that the system works, he said. I believed in rules and procedures and justice. And then I retired, and I watched my grandson come home with broken ribs because your organization decided to make an example out of his friend. And I realized that the system doesn't protect people like my grandson. The system protects people like you, until suddenly it doesn't. He looked away, toward the window. I'm not helping you because I like you, Mitchell said. I'm helping you because helping you might help me. Cooperating with Quinn might give me leverage to protect my family. Might give me the chance to actually be a grandfather instead of a liability. That's the deal. That's the only reason you're sitting in this room right now instead of in a cell. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check it. Quinn will contact you within 48 hours, Mitchell said. He'll give you a choice. You can take it, or you can refuse. But Victor, if you refuse, the next people who come to your door won't be wearing suits and flashing badges. They'll be men with very different intentions. Is that a threat? I asked. It's a fact, Mitchell said. There are people in my old world who take it very personally when someone tries to silence them. And there are people in your world who take it very personally when someone threatens to talk. You're about to be caught between both. I'm just suggesting that you choose your side carefully. I stood up to leave. One more thing, Mitchell called after me. My daughter doesn't know about this conversation. She doesn't know that I'm helping you. She thinks you should rot in prison. I suggest you don't contact her. I suggest you don't contact anyone. Just wait for Quinn, and then decide who you really are. I left that hospital room knowing that my entire world had shifted on its axis. The power I thought I had, the respect, the fear, the control, it was all an illusion. I was a small fish in an ocean I didn't even know existed. And now that I knew it existed, there was nowhere to hide. I drove home in silence. The city around me felt different now, sharper, more dangerous. Every car that passed felt like it could be federal surveillance. Every person on the street could be an informant. I was paranoid, but I was also realistic. Mitchell had just shown me how exposed I really was. Morgan was home when I got there. She was in the kitchen, making lunch, humming something I didn't recognize. She looked happy, normal, like our life wasn't about to implode. Hey, she said, smiling when she saw me. You're home early. Everything okay? I almost told her everything. I almost sat her down and explained that the FBI was closing in, that federal prosecutors were building cases, that I might be facing prison time. But I didn't. Instead, I kissed her on the cheek and told her I had a business meeting that ran long. I'm going to go lie down for a bit, I said. In my bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and called my second-in-command. His name was Hunter. He'd been with me for 12 years. I trusted him as much as I trusted anyone. We need to meet, I said. Tonight. Just you and me. We met at a warehouse we owned on the south side of the city. It was one of our distribution points. Nothing illegal stored there at the moment, but Hunter didn't ask why I wanted to meet there. He just came. What's going on? He asked as soon as I walked in. I told him everything. The beating, the Admiral, the FBI, the federal prosecutor, all of it. Hunter listened without interrupting. When I finished, he just shook his head. This is bad, Victor, he said. This is really bad. I know it's bad, I snapped. That's why I'm telling you. I need to figure out what to do. What do you mean, what to do? Hunter asked. You need to disappear. Tonight. Leave the country. We have money stashed. And go where? I interrupted. Mitchell said there are people in the government who want him dead. If the government can find him, they can find me. There's nowhere to run from this. Hunter was quiet for a moment. So you're thinking about cooperating, he said. It wasn't a question. I don't know what I'm thinking, I admitted. Mitchell implied that Quinn wants me to testify, to give up people in the organization. If you do that, Hunter said slowly, you're dead. You know that, right? The people you work for, the real people, not just the mid-level crew you manage. They will kill you. They will kill your entire family. There's no witness protection program big enough to hide you from them. He was right. I knew he was right. So what do? I asked him. Keep my mouth shut and go to prison? Cooperate and get my family killed? There's no good option here. There might be, Hunter said. He looked uncomfortable, like he was about to say something he shouldn't. What? I asked. Mitchell has to go, Hunter said quietly. If Mitchell recants his story, if he tells the FBI that the whole thing was a misunderstanding, then there's no case. There's no federal incident. Quinn has nothing. I understood what he was suggesting. No, I said immediately. Absolutely not. Victor, I said no, I repeated. Mitchell is under federal protection. If something happens to him, the entire weight of the federal government comes down on us. We're not killing an admiral. We're not doing that. Then what are we doing? Hunter asked, frustration in his voice. We're just waiting around for the feds to arrest you? We're just accepting that your empire falls apart. Maybe it does, I said. And even as I said it, I felt something shift inside me. A moment of clarity. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe I built this whole thing on something false, and now it's catching up with me. Hunter stared at me like I'd lost my mind. You're not thinking straight, he said. The Victor the First No doesn't give up. The Victor the First No fights. Yeah, I said. And look where that's gotten me. I'm 42 years old, and in 48 hours, a federal prosecutor is going to knock on my door with a choice that's going to destroy my life no matter which way I go. So we make sure he never knocks on that door, Hunter said. We handle this our way. Our way, I repeated bitterly. Our way is the reason I'm in this mess in the first place. Mitchell was right about one thing. I operate within the illusion of power. But it's not real power. Real power is what Mitchell has. Real power is the government, the system, the machinery that I can't fight against. I walked to the window and looked out at the city. I need to think, I said. Give me 24 hours. Hunter left, frustrated and unconvinced. I sat in that warehouse for hours, just thinking. I thought about Morgan, about my kids. I thought about the life I'd built and the cost of building it. I thought about Preston with his collapsed lung and his broken ribs. I thought about all the people whose lives I'd damaged in pursuit of respect and fear. And I thought about Admiral Mitchell, lying in that hospital bed, offering me something that nobody else in my world would ever offer, a way out. At 2 a.m, I made a decision. I was going to cooperate. I was going to tell Quinn everything. But before I could make that call, my phone rang. It was one of my men. His voice was panicked. Victor, we have a problem. A big one. What? I asked, though I already sensed what was coming. It's the Admiral, he said. Someone just tried to kill him. The hospital is on lockdown. The feds are everywhere. And Victor, there's more. One of our guys, Preston's cousin Dominic, he's the one who did it. He walked into the hospital with a gun and tried to shoot Mitchell in his hospital room. My heart stopped. Did he succeed? I asked. No. Federal agents were in the hallway. They shot him before he could get a shot off. But Victor, there's going to be an investigation. And if they find out Dominic works for us, I hung up. In that moment, I understood what had just happened. Hunter hadn't listened to me. Hunter had decided to handle this his own way. And he'd just made a catastrophic mistake. The federal case against me wasn't about assault anymore. It wasn't even about organized crime. It was now about attempted murder of a protected federal witness. It was now about conspiracy. It was now about everything. And my arrogance, my belief that I could control situations, that I could manage outcomes, that I could negotiate from a position of strength, had just evaporated. I was no longer playing for control. I was playing for survival. The FBI showed up at my house at 6 a.m. This time it wasn't agents in suits making polite conversation. It was a full tactical team with body armor and weapons. They had a warrant. They had arrest warrants for me and Hunter. They had search warrants for every property I owned. Morgan screamed when they kicked in the door. My kids ran upstairs in terror. I stood in my kitchen with my hands up, watching my life get dismantled in real time. They read me my rights in front of my family. They handcuffed me in front of my children. And as they led me out of the house, I saw Morgan's face. The shock, the betrayal, the realization that everything she thought she knew about me was a lie. At the federal building, I was placed in an interrogation room. No windows. Just a table, 2 chairs, and a mirror I knew was one-way glass. Prosecutor Nathaniel Quinn walked in 40 minutes later. He was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and the kind of presence that filled a room without trying. He had a folder with him, and he placed it on the table between us. "Your second in command, Hunter, is talking," Quinn said without preamble. "He's already given us the names of everyone above you in the organization. He's given us financial records, transaction details, and operational procedures. He's been incredibly cooperative." I didn't say anything. "Here's what we know," Quinn continued, opening the folder. "Hunter ordered the hit on Admiral Mitchell. He made the call to a man named Dominic Reeves, a career criminal with ties to your operation. Dominic went to the hospital with the intention of killing Mitchell. Federal agents shot him before he could fire. He's currently in critical condition at a different hospital, under guard." Quinn leaned back in his chair. "Now, we could charge you with conspiracy to commit murder. We could charge you with attempted murder of a federal witness. We could charge you with organized crime, racketeering, money laundering. The list goes on and on. You're looking at 40, 50 years in federal prison, Victor. Maybe more." He paused, letting that sink in. "Or," he said, "you can help us." "Help you how?" I asked carefully. "You tell us everything," Quinn said. "You tell us about the organization. You tell us about the people above you. You tell us about the operations, the money, the connections. You become a witness. You testify in court. And in exchange, we make a deal. We reduce your sentence. We put your family in protective custody. We give you a chance at a life after this." "And Hunter?" I asked. "He's already giving you information. Why do you need me?" Quinn smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Because Hunter is lying," he said. "He's giving us information, yes. But he's lying about his own role. He's trying to minimize his involvement. He's trying to shift blame. We need you to verify the truth. We need you to tell us what really happened, what Hunter really ordered, and who he's really protecting." I understood then. Hunter had betrayed me to save himself. He'd given up my organization, but he'd done it in a way that protected his own interests. And now Quinn wanted me to expose Hunter's lies. "I need a lawyer," I said. "Your lawyer is already outside," Quinn said. "Julian, right? He's been briefed. He thinks you should cooperate. He thinks it's your best play." Julian came in after Quinn left. He sat down across from me and spoke quietly. "Victor, you need to understand the situation," he said. "Hunter is currently negotiating a plea deal that gives him 15 years. In exchange, he's given the federal government detailed information about your operation and the organization above you. If you don't cooperate, Quinn is going to use Hunter's testimony against you, combined with the evidence they already have, to send you away for the rest of your life." "What if I cooperate?" I asked. "Then you get a deal similar to Hunter's. Maybe less time, depending on what you can offer. But more importantly, you get to shape the narrative. You get to tell your side of the story. You get to make sure that the people above you, the real architects of this organization, they go down too." I thought about Mitchell in his hospital bed. I thought about Preston with his collapsed lung. I thought about Morgan's face when the FBI dragged me out of our house. "Okay," I said. "I'll cooperate." For the next 18 hours, I told Quinn everything. I gave him names, locations, transaction details, operational procedures. I told him about the people who ran the organization above me, the people I'd never even met, but who controlled everything through intermediaries. And with each piece of information I gave him, I felt like I was betraying everyone I'd ever worked with. But I was also feeling something else, relief. The weight of carrying all this, of maintaining the facade of power and control, it was lifting. But then Quinn showed me something that changed everything. It was a document, a communication between Hunter and someone I didn't recognize. The communication was dated from 3 weeks ago, before I even beat up Mitchell. "What is this?" I asked. "This is Hunter plotting against you," Quinn said. "This is Hunter working with people in your organization to remove you from power. This is Hunter setting you up to take the fall for operations he's been running independently." My stomach twisted. "Hunter was already planning to give you up," Quinn continued. "He was already positioning himself to take over your territory. The hit on Mitchell, that wasn't just about protecting the organization. That was Hunter trying to create a situation that would destroy you, discredit you, and force you out. Why would he do that? I asked, though I was beginning to understand. Because, Quinn said, he was tired of being number two. He wanted to be number one. And he figured that if he gave you up, if he made you look like a loose cannon who attacked a federal witness without authorization, then he could convince the people above you that you were a liability, that you needed to be removed. I'd built an empire with a man I trusted, only to discover that he'd been planning to destroy me the entire time. I'd made decisions based on loyalty to someone who'd never been loyal to me. There's more, Quinn said, sliding another document across the table. It was a wire transfer. $500,000. Sent from an account I recognized, one of Hunter's accounts, to an account belonging to someone in the organization. Someone above me. Hunter wasn't just working against you, Quinn said. He was working with them. He was their agent inside your operation. He was reporting to them, following their orders, setting you up. I felt my entire understanding of the last 12 years collapse. I want to know who, I said. I want to know who he was working for. Quinn opened another folder. Inside was a photograph of a man I recognized immediately. His name was Adrian Voss. He was the regional director of the organization. He was the person who'd recruited me, who'd mentored me, who I'd always believed was taking care of me. Voss? I asked, unable to believe it. Voss, Quinn confirmed. He brought Hunter into the organization specifically to monitor you, to make sure you stayed in line. When you started showing signs of independence, when you started making decisions without checking with Voss first, Voss told Hunter to remove you. So the beating I started was a setup, Quinn finished. Hunter knew about it beforehand. Hunter encouraged it. Hunter made sure that Mitchell would be in that parking garage that night. Hunter orchestrated the entire thing to create a situation where you'd become a liability to the organization. And when that worked, when you panicked and went to see Mitchell, Hunter saw his opportunity to order the hit. I sat back in my chair, reeling. But Hunter miscalculated, Quinn said. He didn't expect that Admiral Mitchell would reach out to me. He didn't expect that Mitchell would want to help you. And he definitely didn't expect that you'd have the presence of mind to go see Mitchell instead of running or fighting back. So where does this leave me? I asked. It leaves you with a choice, Quinn said. You can continue cooperating with us. You can help us build a case against Voss and the organization. You can testify in court. And in exchange, we'll protect you. We'll give you a new identity, a new life. You and your family will disappear. Or, I asked, or you keep your mouth shut, you take the deal that Hunter made, and you spend the next 15 years in federal prison knowing that the man who set you up is going to walk free. I thought about it for a long time. I want to talk to my wife, I said finally. Quinn nodded and left me alone. Morgan came to see me that night. She looked exhausted, broken. She didn't say anything when she sat down. She just looked at me with eyes that were full of questions I didn't know how to answer. I'm cooperating, I told her. I'm going to testify. It's the only way to protect you and the kids. Who are you? She asked quietly. I don't even know who you are anymore. Neither do I said. And I meant it. The federal investigation into Adrian Voss and the organization took 3 months. 3 months of me sitting in a safe house with Morgan and the kids, reliving every moment of my life in that world, every decision I'd made, every person I'd hurt. Quinn came to see me regularly. Each time, he brought new documents, new evidence, new pieces of the puzzle that was Adrian Voss's criminal empire. What we uncovered was bigger than I'd ever imagined. Voss wasn't just running a regional operation. He was part of a network that stretched across the entire Northeast. Money laundering operations in 5 states. Trafficking routes from the port. Connections to corrupt officials at every level, city, state, federal. He had judges in his pocket. He had police officers on his payroll. He had politicians who owed him favors. And Hunter had been his eyes and ears inside my operation for years. Hunter started working for Voss when you brought him in. Quinn explained during one of our sessions. Voss wanted to test you. He wanted to see if you had the instinct to spot betrayal, to sense when someone wasn't loyal. You didn't. You never even suspected. How long was he reporting? I asked. Since day one, Quinn said. Every operation you ran, Hunter reported back to Voss. Every decision you made, Voss knew about it before your crew did. You were never really in charge, Victor. You were always just a puppet. Voss was pulling the strings the entire time. The realization made me sick. But something changed, Quinn continued. About 6 months ago, you started making independent decisions. You started taking risks that Voss didn't approve of. You were becoming unpredictable, and that scared Voss. So he decided to remove me. I said. Exactly, Quinn said. But he needed it to look like your mistake. He needed it to look like you were the one who'd made the bad decision. So he had Hunter engineer the situation with Mitchell. He knew that Admiral Mitchell was connected to federal protection. He knew that if you assaulted Mitchell, it would bring down federal heat. And he knew that you would panic, that you would make mistakes, that you would eventually break. But Mitchell didn't press charges, I said. That wasn't part of Voss's plan. No, Quinn agreed. That threw him off. That's why he ordered the hit on Mitchell. He was trying to clean up the mess, to remove the complication. But that backfired too. Quinn leaned forward. Here's what we're building, Victor. We're building a case that shows Voss deliberately set you up. We're building a case that shows he ordered a murder. We're building a case that shows he's been running a criminal enterprise that corrupts government officials at the highest levels. And we're building all of that with your testimony as the foundation. What about Hunter? I asked. What happens to him? Hunter's testifying too, Quinn said. He's given us everything. He's given us details about the operations, the money flows, the people involved. He's a cooperating witness, just like you. So he gets to walk? I asked bitterly. He gets a reduced sentence, Quinn said. But he doesn't walk. He's going to prison. He's just not going to prison for as long as you would have if you hadn't cooperated. I understood then the full measure of betrayal. Hunter had betrayed me to save himself. And now, by cooperating, I was doing the same thing to Voss. The cycle continued. The betrayal continued. But there was a difference. Voss had deserved it. Voss had chosen this life. Voss had made the conscious decision to build an empire on the suffering of others. Over the next 2 months, federal agents worked their way through the organization systematically. They identified Voss's connections to corrupt officials. They traced money flows. They intercepted communications. They built an airtight case. And then, on a Tuesday morning in June, they arrested Adrian Voss. Quinn called me that afternoon with the news. It's done, he said. Voss is in custody. We're charging him with racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and a dozen other federal offenses. What about the others? I asked. The officials he had connections with? Those are ongoing investigations, Quinn said. But we've made arrests. We've got a judge, a city councilman, and 2 police officers in custody. There will be more as we work through the organization. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt like justice was being served. But all I felt was empty. That night, I got a visitor at the safe house. It was Admiral Mitchell. He moved slowly, still recovering from his injuries. But his presence was as commanding as ever. How are you holding up? He asked. I'm not sure, I said honestly. I betrayed an entire organization. You exposed criminals, Mitchell corrected. You helped bring down people who were preying on your community. That's not betrayal, Victor. That's redemption. It doesn't feel like redemption, I said. It feels like I'm just as guilty as they are. I just got caught. Mitchell sat down across from me. Do you know why I didn't press charges? He asked. After you hit me, after you broke my skull and gave me internal bleeding, do you know why I didn't immediately have you arrested? No, I said. Because my daughter was screaming at me too, Mitchell said. She was furious. She wanted you punished through the system. She wanted traditional justice. And I realized in that moment that I'd spent 38 years believing in traditional justice. I'd spent 38 years believing that the system works, that good people win and bad people lose. And then I retired and realized that wasn't true. The system is just another game. And most people lose that game too. He paused. But then something changed, he continued. I saw you at the hospital. I saw a man who understood, for the first time, that his power was an illusion. And I thought, maybe this man can be different. Maybe this man can choose a different path. So I offered you that choice. And I took it, I said. Yes, you did, Mitchell said. And now you're going to follow through. You're going to testify. You're going to help bring down Voss and everyone connected to him. And then you're going to start over. Start over as what? I asked. A federal witness? Someone in protective custody? Someone who betrayed their entire world. Start over as someone who learned, Mitchell said. Start over as someone who chose redemption instead of destruction. Start over as a father who can look his kids in the eye and tell them that he tried to do the right thing. He stood up slowly. The trial starts next month, he said. Your testimony is going to be crucial. Voss's lawyers are going to try to discredit you, to make you look like a criminal trying to save himself by betraying his boss. But you're going to go in there and tell the truth. And the truth is going to be powerful. After Mitchell left, I sat alone in the safe house, thinking about everything that had happened. I'd come into this world because I wanted power, respect, fear. I'd built an empire on those foundations. And in the end, I'd had none of those things. I'd had only the illusion of them. Now I was being given something different. The chance to be something other than a criminal. The chance to be a man of integrity. The chance to matter in a way that didn't involve hurting people. I didn't know if I was strong enough to take that chance. But I knew I had to try. 2 weeks before the trial, Quinn called me to the federal building. His voice on the phone was different, urgent, troubled. I knew something had happened. When I got to his office, he was pacing. There were documents scattered across his desk. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. We have a problem, he said without preamble. A serious one. What kind of problem? I asked, sitting down. Quinn handed me a file. Inside were photographs, security footage from various locations, money exchanges, meetings between people I recognized. These are from the last month, Quinn said. These are communications between federal officials, people we thought were clean, and Adrian Voss. I looked at the photos, not understanding. One of them is a federal judge, Quinn said quietly. Judge Oliver Hartley. He's been assigned to your case. He's been assigned to preside over the trial against Voss. My blood ran cold. Voss is paying him, Quinn continued. We don't know how much or for how long, but Hartley has been receiving payments. Regular payments. Large payments. And more importantly, Hartley has been passing information to Voss about the investigation. How is that possible? I asked. How did Voss have access to a federal judge? Because Voss is smarter than we gave him credit for, Quinn said bitterly. He didn't just corrupt city officials and police officers. He corrupted federal officials too. Hartley has been in Voss's pocket for at least 5 years. Probably longer. I felt the ground shifting beneath me again. What does this mean for the trial? I asked. It means, Quinn said slowly, that we can't have Hartley presiding. It means we have to file a motion to have him recused. It means we have to expose his corruption. And it means that Voss knew we were coming. Hartley has been feeding him information about our investigation the entire time. So Voss knows what I'm going to testify to? I asked. Probably, Quinn said. Which means he's had time to prepare a defense. Which means he's had time to discredit witnesses, to move evidence, to do whatever he needs to do to undermine our case. I stood up and walked to the window. There's more, Quinn said behind me. We've discovered that Hartley isn't the only federal official compromised. There are at least 2 other judges on the federal bench who have connections to Voss. There's an FBI supervisor who's been passing information. There's a Justice Department attorney who's been steering cases away from prosecution. So Voss has penetrated the entire system, I said. Not the entire system, Quinn said, but enough of it to be extremely dangerous. Enough of it to potentially compromise the trial. Enough of it to make sure that even if we convict him, he can appeal on the grounds of judicial misconduct. I turned back to face him. Why are you telling me this? I asked. If Hartley has been feeding information to Voss, then Voss already knows about your investigation into Hartley. Voss already knows you're going to expose him. So why tell me? Quinn was quiet for a moment. Because we need to accelerate the timeline, he said. We need to move the trial up. We need to go to trial before Voss can arrange for a new judge to be compromised, before he can arrange for other officials to interfere. How much do we accelerate? I asked. 2 weeks, Quinn said. The trial starts in 2 weeks instead of 2 months. That's not enough time, I said. My lawyer needs time to prepare. Your team needs time to organize evidence. We've already prepared, Quinn interrupted. We've been preparing for this the entire time. Your testimony is ready. The evidence is organized. All we need is for you to get in that courtroom and tell the truth. And what about Voss? I asked. What about his defense? Voss's lawyers have been expecting a 2-month trial timeline, Quinn said. They've been preparing for a long, drawn-out legal battle. They haven't been preparing for a sprint. We're going to catch them off guard. I understood then what Quinn was doing. He wasn't just prosecuting Voss. He was fighting against a system that Voss had corrupted. He was fighting against judges and federal officials who'd been bought and paid for. He was fighting a battle that went far beyond one criminal trial. There's something else, Quinn said, and his voice was even more troubled than before. We've discovered that Judge Hartley isn't just passing information to Voss. He's passing information to someone else too. Someone higher up than Voss. I asked, confused. Quinn nodded slowly. There's an organization above Voss, he said. A larger criminal enterprise that Voss has been operating under. We knew about it theoretically, but we didn't have evidence. We didn't have names. But Hartley's communications reveal that there's someone, we don't know who yet, who's directing Voss's operations. Someone who has influence over multiple criminal organizations across the entire region. My stomach dropped. Are you telling me that Voss isn't the top of this pyramid? I asked. Voss is just middle management, Quinn said. Just like you were. You thought Voss was the boss. But Voss has a boss too. And that boss has tentacles reaching into the federal government, the judicial system, law enforcement agencies. That boss has power that makes Voss look like a street thug. I sat back down heavily. So even if we convict Voss, I said, even if we expose Hartley and the other corrupt officials, it doesn't matter. Because there's someone above all of them. Someone we can't touch. Not yet, Quinn said. But your testimony might help us get there. Your testimony might help us identify who Voss's boss is. Your testimony might give us the thread we need to start unraveling the whole thing. And if I refuse? I asked. If I decide that this is too big, that I don't want any part of it anymore? Quinn leaned back in his chair. Then Voss walks, he said simply. Because without your testimony, we don't have a case strong enough to convict. Hunter's testimony alone isn't enough. And if Voss walks, then he goes straight to his boss and tells him everything he knows about our investigation. And then people start disappearing. Witnesses disappear. Investigators disappear. People like me disappear. He paused. And your family, he continued quietly, becomes a liability. A loose end that needs to be tied up. I understood. I'd always understood, really. But I've been trying to convince myself that cooperating would keep my family safe. Now I realized that there was no safety. There was only the choice between fighting or surrendering. And if I surrendered, I didn't just lose my family. I lost everything. I'll testify, I said. When do we start? Tomorrow, Quinn said. We start jury selection tomorrow. You take the stand on Friday. That night, I called Morgan. I told her about the accelerated timeline. I told her that the trial was starting in 2 days. I didn't tell her about the other corrupt officials, about the larger criminal organization, about the mysterious boss that Voss answered to. I didn't tell her because I didn't want her to know how deep this really went. But I think she knew anyway. I think she could hear it in my voice, the understanding that this was bigger than any of us. This was a battle between systems. This was a war that had been raging long before I became part of it. And now I was about to step into the courtroom and become a soldier in that war. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Not intimate. Federal courtrooms are never intimate, but contained. Focused. Every detail seemed magnified. The judge's bench, the jury box, the witness stand where I would sit. Judge Sarah Finch was presiding. She'd been brought in specifically because Quinn had concerns about Hartley's impartiality. She was known for being tough, fair, and incorruptible. She was the kind of judge who couldn't be bought. Voss sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, looking every bit the businessman he pretended to be. He didn't look at me when I walked in. He didn't acknowledge me, but I felt his presence like a pressure in the room. I was sworn in on a Thursday morning. Quinn led me through my testimony carefully, methodically. He had me establish my role in the organization. He had me explain the hierarchy. He had me detail the operations, the money laundering, the protection rackets, the trafficking routes. And then he asked me about the order to harm Admiral Mitchell. "Tell the court what happened," Quinn said gently. I looked at Voss. For the first time, he looked back at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and in that moment, I understood something I hadn't understood before. He wasn't angry at me for testifying. He was disappointed in me. "Hunter came to me," I said, my voice steady. "He said that there was a problem. He said that someone was interfering with our operations. He said that this person was connected to federal protection. He said that we needed to handle it." "Did you understand what handle it meant?" Quinn asked. "Yes," I said. "It meant removing the person. Permanently." "And what did you do?" I hesitated. This was the moment where I could lie. This was the moment where I could protect myself. But I didn't. "I told Hunter no," I said. "I told him that killing a federal witness was too risky. I told him it would bring down more federal heat than it was worth. I told him to leave it alone." Quinn nodded. "But Hunter didn't leave it alone, did he?" "No," I said. "He went ahead with the order. He sent Dominic Reeves to the hospital with a gun. Dominic tried to kill Admiral Mitchell." "And where did that order come from?" Quinn asked. "Who told Hunter to order the hit?" This was the crucial moment. This was where I had to name names. "Adrian Voss," I said, looking directly at him. "Voss ordered the hit. Voss told Hunter to remove Mitchell from the equation." Voss's lawyer stood up immediately. "Objection," he said. "Speculative. The witness doesn't have direct knowledge of what Mr. Voss ordered." "Withdrawn," Quinn said quickly. "Victor, did you have a direct conversation with Adrian Voss about Admiral Mitchell?" I paused. I had to think carefully about this. I wanted to tell the truth, but I also needed to be precise about what I actually knew versus what I suspected. "No," I admitted. "I didn't have a direct conversation with Voss. But I found out later, after everything happened, that Hunter had been talking to Voss. That Voss had been directing Hunter's actions." "How did you find out?" Quinn asked. "From federal agents," I said. "They showed me communications between Hunter and Voss. They showed me that Voss had been ordering Hunter to remove me from the operation." Voss's lawyer stood up again. "Objection," he said. "Hearsay. The witness is testifying about communications he didn't hear directly. He's testifying about what federal agents told him federal agents had found." Judge Finch leaned forward. "The prosecution is laying foundation," she said. "Overruled." "Continue." Quinn nodded at me. "Let me ask you this, Victor," he said. "Were you present for any communications between Hunter and Voss?" "No," I said. "But I was present for conversations Hunter had with Dominic about going to the hospital. I was present when Hunter said that he'd been authorized to take action." "By whom?" Quinn asked. "By his superiors in the organization," I said. "Which meant Voss." Quinn turned to the jury. "So let me summarize," he said. "You had a chain of command. Voss was above you. Voss gave orders to Hunter. Hunter received those orders and carried them out. Is that accurate?" "Yes," I said. "That's accurate." "And you were aware of this chain of command?" "Yes," I said. "I understood how the organization worked. And yet, when Hunter decided to have Admiral Mitchell killed, you tried to stop it. You told Hunter no. You tried to prevent the murder from happening. Why?" I thought about this for a moment. It was a good question. It was a question that cut to the heart of everything. "Because I understood, at that moment, that we were wrong," I said quietly. I understood that hurting an old man, that killing a federal witness, that it would bring down consequences we couldn't survive. More than that, I understood that Mitchell hadn't done anything to deserve it. He was just trying to protect his community. So you had a moral objection? Quinn asked. I had a practical objection, I said. But yes, I also had a moral objection. And did you voice that objection to your superiors? No, I admitted. I voiced it to Hunter. But I didn't go to Voss. I didn't go above Hunter. I didn't try to countermand his authority. Why not? Quinn asked. I looked at Voss again. Because I was afraid of him, I said simply. Because I knew that if I went to Voss and contradicted Hunter, if I questioned Voss's authority, then Voss would remove me. I'd seen what happened to people who challenged Voss. What happened to them? Quinn asked. Voss's lawyer stood up. Objection, he said. Assumes facts not in evidence. Rephrase, Judge Finch said. Did you ever witness Voss taking action against people who challenged him? Quinn asked. I heard stories, I said. I heard about people who'd questioned his authority and then disappeared. I never saw it happen directly. But I heard enough to understand that Voss wasn't someone you openly defied. So fear kept you in line, Quinn said. Yes, I said. Fear kept me in line. Quinn nodded and walked back to his table. He sat down, and Voss's lawyer stood up. The cross-examination was brutal. Voss's lawyer tore into me for the next 3 hours. He questioned my credibility. He pointed out that I was a criminal trying to save myself. He suggested that I was lying to reduce my sentence. He asked me pointed questions about my own crimes, my own violence, my own culpability in the organization's operations. And with each question, I felt smaller. I felt like the version of me that I'd tried to shed, the criminal, the violent man, the person who hurt people, was being exposed again in front of everyone. But I didn't lie. I told the truth about who I was. I admitted to my crimes. I admitted to my violence. I admitted to the harm I'd caused. And somehow, by admitting to all of it, I felt less like a criminal and more like a man taking responsibility. When I stepped down from the witness stand, I was exhausted. But I was also lighter. The weight of pretense was gone. The weight of maintaining the facade of the man I'd pretended to be was finally, completely gone. That night, Quinn came to see me at the safe house. You did well, he said. It didn't feel like it, I said. His lawyer made me look like a monster. He made you look like a man, Quinn corrected. A man who did terrible things. A man who's trying to take responsibility for those things. A man who's willing to testify, despite the cost to himself. Do you think the jury will convict? I asked. I think, Quinn said carefully, that we've given them enough to convict. Whether they will or not, that's in God's hands now. The jury deliberated for 4 days. 4 days of sitting in the safe house, watching Morgan try to keep the kids occupied, watching time move like molasses. 4 days of waiting to find out if my testimony, if my betrayal, would matter. On the 5th day, Quinn called. They've reached a verdict, he said. We need to be at the courthouse in an hour. The courtroom was packed. Media had been covering the trial extensively. The corruption of federal judges, the penetration of organized crime into government. It was the kind of story that made headlines. Judge Finch banged her gavel and called for order as reporters scrambled for position. Voss stood as the jury filed in. He looked calm, composed. He looked like a man who believed he was untouchable. The foreman stood up. Have you reached a verdict? Judge Finch asked. We have, Your Honor, the foreman said. Judge Finch took the verdict form and read it silently. Her expression didn't change. She handed it back to the court clerk, who read it aloud. On the charge of racketeering, we find the defendant guilty. My chest tightened. On the charge of money laundering, we find the defendant guilty. Voss's face remained impassive, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. A moment of realization. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of attempted murder of a federal witness, we find the defendant guilty. With each guilty verdict, the room seemed to shift. The media erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Judge Finch called for order again, and the bailiffs moved to quiet the crowd. But Voss wasn't looking at the judge. He was looking at me. And in that moment, I saw something I'd never expected to see. I saw fear in Adrian Voss's eyes. After the verdict was announced, after the sentencing hearing was scheduled, after the cameras finally stopped flashing, Quinn came to find me. "You did it," he said. "Your testimony was the foundation of that conviction. Without you, Voss walks." "What's his sentence?" I asked. "Life," Quinn said. "Multiple consecutive sentences. He's never getting out of prison." I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt like justice had been served. But all I felt was complicated. That night, there was a knock on the door of the safe house. A federal agent opened it carefully, checking the visitor before letting them through. It was Admiral Mitchell. He looked stronger now, more healed, but the scars were still visible, physical reminders of the beating I'd given him. He didn't seem angry. He seemed sad. "I wanted to congratulate you," he said. "The jury believed you. Justice was served." "Justice?" I repeated bitterly. "Voss goes to prison. I go into witness protection. My family loses everything we had. That's justice." "No," Mitchell said quietly. "That's consequence. Justice is knowing that you tried to do the right thing. Justice is knowing that you had the opportunity to stay silent, and you didn't." He sat down across from me. "I've spent 40 years watching consequences happen to bad people and good people alike," he continued. "I've learned that justice isn't about making things equal. It's about making things true. It's about ensuring that truth is spoken and documented and recorded, even when it costs us." "And what about the cost?" I asked. "What about my family? What about the life I'm losing?" "What life were you losing anyway?" Mitchell asked. "The life of a criminal? The life of a man who hurt people? The life of someone living in fear?" He stood up. "You have a chance now to build something different," he said. "You have a chance to start over. Most people don't get that chance. Most people are stuck with the choices they've made. But you have a chance." After Mitchell left, I sat alone in the safe house and thought about what he'd said. 2 days later, Quinn came to me with news about the next phase of my role as a federal witness. But before he could explain, he told me something else. "We've made progress on identifying Voss's superior," he said. "The mysterious boss we talked about." "Who is it?" I asked. "We're not entirely sure yet," Quinn said. "But we have a name. A man named Tristan Vailmont. He's extremely well connected. He has interests in multiple criminal enterprises across the region. He also has connections to people in government, law enforcement, and the judiciary." "Another corrupt official?" I asked. "We're not sure if he's corrupt or if he's corrupting," Quinn said. "That's what we're trying to figure out. But here's what we know. Voss wasn't his only operative. There are at least 5 other criminal organizations in this region that report to Vailmont. If Voss was middle management, then Vailmont is the CEO. So Voss's conviction doesn't really matter," I said, "because the real power structure remains intact." "It matters more than you think," Quinn said. "Every conviction, every person we turn into a cooperating witness, every piece of evidence we gather, it all adds up. Eventually, we'll have enough to move against Vailmont. Eventually, we'll be able to bring him down too." "And when that happens?" I asked. "When you finally catch him? Then we do it all over again," Quinn said quietly. "Because there's always someone higher up. There's always another layer. The fight against corruption never really ends. It just becomes about getting one step closer to the top." I understood then what I'd really agreed to when I decided to cooperate. I hadn't agreed to testify against one man. I hadn't agreed to a simple transaction, my testimony in exchange for a reduced sentence. I'd agreed to become part of a larger fight, a fight that might take years, a fight that might never be completely won. But I'd also learned something important. I'd learned that sometimes the only victory available to us is the victory of truth, the victory of standing up and saying what we know, even when it costs us everything. "What do you need from me?" I asked Quinn. "For now," he said, "you rest. You let us work. You prepare for your new life in witness protection. But eventually, Eventually, we might need you to testify again. We might need you to help us build cases against the people connected to Valemont. I'll do it, I said. Whatever you need. Quinn nodded and left me with my thoughts. That night, I called Morgan. She was staying in a different safe house with the kids, a precaution to ensure that none of us could inadvertently reveal each other's location. It's over, I told her. Voss was convicted. The trial is done. What happens now? She asked. Now we disappear, I said. We get new names, a new city, a new life. Is that what you want? She asked quietly. I thought about the man I'd been. I thought about the power and the fear and the violence. I thought about the emptiness that came with all of it. No, I said, but it's what I deserve. We left the city on a cold morning in September. New identities, new documents, new lives. I became Michael Grant, a consultant from Colorado. Morgan became Patricia. Our children got new names, new schools, new futures. The federal government placed us in Portland, Oregon, a city far enough from the Northeast that nobody would think to look for us. A place where we could theoretically start over. But starting over turned out to be harder than I'd imagined. The first month, I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake at night, listening to every sound, convinced that Voss's associates had found us, convinced that someone was coming to settle scores. I'd get up and check the locks 3, 4, 5 times a night. I'd look out the windows constantly, scanning for surveillance, for threats. Morgan didn't say anything about it, but I could see the worry in her eyes. I could see her wondering if she'd made the right choice, staying with me instead of divorcing me and taking the kids and trying to build a normal life. I'm sorry, I told her one night. I'm sorry for all of this. I know you are, she said. But sorry doesn't change anything. We're here now. We have to figure out how to live here. So we tried. We enrolled the kids in school. We found an apartment in a quiet neighborhood. I got a job at a consulting firm, legitimate work, legal work, the kind of work I'd never done in my previous life. It paid well enough. It was honest. But I wasn't honest with the people I worked with. I couldn't be. They thought I was someone I wasn't. They had no idea about my past, my crimes, my testimony. They had no idea that I was a federal witness in protective custody. Some days, that felt like redemption. Some days, it felt like living a lie. 3 months after we arrived in Portland, Quinn called me. Tristan Valemont is dead, he said without preamble. I felt my stomach drop. Dead? I repeated. How? Car accident, Quinn said. At least, that's what it looked like. Single vehicle collision on a highway in upstate New York. Valemont was driving alone. He hit a guardrail and went off a cliff. You think it wasn't an accident, I said. It wasn't a question. I think Valemont had made enemies, Quinn said carefully. I think there were people who wanted him out of the way. Whether it was his own organization turning on him, or whether it was someone else entirely, we don't know yet. Does this affect me? I asked. It might, Quinn said. Without Valemont, the organization he ran is fragmenting. People are fighting for control. Some are cooperating with us. Some are running. Some are trying to consolidate power. And me? You're safer, Quinn said. With Valemont dead and Voss in prison. The people who would most benefit from your death are either dead or imprisoned. Your immediate threat level has decreased significantly. After I hung up with Quinn, I sat on the porch of my apartment and thought about what it meant for Valemont to be dead. I thought about whether someone had killed him deliberately or whether it really was an accident. I thought about the cycles of violence and corruption that seemed to perpetuate endlessly. That evening, Morgan found me on the porch. What happened? She asked, sitting down beside me. Someone died, I said. Someone important to the investigation. Does that mean we can go back? She asked hopefully. Does that mean we can have our old lives back? I looked at her. This woman I'd married 15 years ago. This woman I'd betrayed with my violence and my crimes. This woman who'd somehow stayed with me through all of it. No, I said gently. We can't go back. There is no old life to go back to. The old life was a lie. She was quiet for a moment. What if we just stayed here? She asked. What if we just accepted this? What if we just tried to be the people we're pretending to be? Is that what you want? I asked. I want to stop being afraid, she said. I want to stop jumping every time there's a knock on the door. I want to stop wondering if my husband is going to prison or if someone is going to kill him. I want to just be normal. I want that so badly. I took her hand. Okay, I said. Let's try to be normal. Over the next year, we did try. We built a life in Portland. A quiet life. A normal life. I went to work. I came home. I helped the kids with homework. I fixed things around the apartment. I tried to be the kind of father and husband that my children deserved. And it worked most of the time. There were days when I forgot about my past. Days when I could almost believe that I really was Michael Grant, a consultant from Colorado with no criminal history, no testimony, no role in federal investigations. But there were also nights when I'd wake up screaming from nightmares about Voss, about Mitchell, about Hunter. Nights when the guilt would come crashing down, and I'd feel like I didn't deserve this normal life, this family, this second chance. On one of those nights, I got a call from Quinn. It was late, past midnight. I need you to come back, he said. We're building a case against one of Vailmont's subordinates. We need your testimony again. I thought you said I was safer now, I said. You are, Quinn said. Safer doesn't mean safe. It means less dangerous than before. But we need you. We need your knowledge of how these organizations operate. We need you to help us identify the connections between Vailmont's operations and his subordinates. And then what? I asked. Do I go back into protective custody? Do I lose this life again? I don't know, Quinn said honestly. I don't know if this ever really ends for you, Victor. I don't know if you ever really get to just be Michael Grant and forget about who you were. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed, looking at Morgan sleeping beside me. I thought about what Quinn had said. I thought about the question of whether I deserved to forget. And I realized something. I didn't deserve to forget. The people I'd hurt, the violence I'd committed, that was real. That was part of me. And pretending it wasn't, pretending that I was someone different, that was just another lie. The next morning, I told Morgan that I had to go back. For how long? She asked. I don't know, I said. A few weeks, maybe a month. She didn't argue. She'd learned by then that arguing didn't change anything. I went back to the Northeast to testify. I told my story again, told the truth again, betrayed another person in the criminal organization. And when it was over, when the conviction came through, I realized something. I wasn't getting lighter. Each testimony, each betrayal, didn't make me feel more innocent. If anything, it made me feel more complicit, more involved, more trapped in a cycle that I couldn't escape. But I also realized something else. I wasn't testifying to save myself anymore. I was testifying because it was the right thing to do. I was testifying because truth mattered, even when it was painful, even when it cost me everything. 5 years later, I was sitting in my office in Portland when I got the call that changed everything again. It was Admiral Mitchell. Victor, he said, and his voice sounded older now, more fragile. I'm dying. I didn't know what to say. For a moment, I couldn't say anything. The doctors give me 3 months, he continued. Maybe 4 if I'm lucky. Cancer. It's spread everywhere. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. Don't be sorry, Mitchell said. I've lived a full life. I've seen justice served. I've seen the man who beat me go to prison. I've seen the criminal organizations that preyed on my community start to crumble. I've seen what you became after you decided to tell the truth. What did I become? I asked quietly. A man, Mitchell said simply. Not a criminal. Not a victim. Just a man trying to do the right thing. He paused, breathing heavily on the other end of the line. I'm calling because I want to tell you something, he said. I want to tell you that I forgive you. For the beating. For everything that came after. I forgive you. I felt something break inside me. Something I'd been holding on to for 5 years finally let go. Why? I asked. Why would you forgive me? Because forgiveness isn't about absolving you of what you did, Mitchell said. Forgiveness is about recognizing that you've changed. Forgiveness is about acknowledging that you're trying to be better. And Victor, you are trying. Every day, you wake up and try to be better than you were. We talked for another hour. We talked about his life, his family, his grandchildren. We talked about the investigation, about the convictions, about the impact my testimony had made. We talked about everything except the thing we both knew was coming. When we hung up, I sat at my desk for a long time, not moving. 3 months later, Admiral James Mitchell died peacefully in his home, surrounded by his family. His daughter Eliza called me to tell me. She didn't know we'd been in contact. She didn't know that he'd forgiven me. "He wanted you to know," she said, reading from a letter he'd left with her. "That quiet justice is the most powerful kind. Justice isn't about revenge. It's not about making people suffer. It's about making sure that truth is known, that accountability is taken, and that the next generation doesn't have to suffer the same betrayals and violence that this generation did." I attended his funeral. I sat in the back of the church, hidden in the shadows, watching as his family and friends mourned him. I watched Eliza's tears. I watched his grandchildren struggle to understand why their grandfather was gone. And I felt, for the first time since I'd started cooperating with the federal government, like maybe, just maybe, something good had come from all the pain. After the funeral, Eliza approached me. She recognized me immediately. "You're Victor," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I said. "My father talked about you," she said. "Not much, but enough for me to understand that you meant something to him, that you represented something important to him." "What?" I asked. "Redemption," she said. "He believed in redemption. He believed that people could change. He believed that even someone like you, someone who'd done terrible things, could choose to be better." She paused, looking at me with eyes that were so much like her father's. "I don't forgive you," she said quietly. "Not like he did. I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive you for what you did to him. But I'm grateful for what you did after. I'm grateful that you had the courage to testify. I'm grateful that you helped bring criminals to justice." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "He wanted me to give this to you," she said. "He wrote it a week before he died." I opened it later, alone in my apartment. The handwriting was shaky but still commanding. "Victor, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I won't get to see how the rest of your story unfolds. But I want you to know that I see you. I see the man you're becoming. I see the choices you're making every day to be better than you were. Redemption isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. It's about taking responsibility. It's about living in a way that honors the people you've hurt by being better to the people around you. You will spend the rest of your life carrying the weight of what you've done. That's not punishment. That's wisdom. That's the understanding that actions have consequences, and we don't get to simply forget about them or move past them. But you also don't have to let that weight crush you. You can carry it and still live. You can carry it and still love your family. You can carry it and still be a good man. I forgive you, Victor. Not because what you did was okay, but because I believe you're trying. And in this broken world, trying is sometimes enough. Be well. Be honest. Be kind to your family. And remember, quiet justice, lived every single day through your choices and your integrity, is the most powerful kind. James, that night, I called my family together. Morgan, my children, now teenagers, old enough to understand some of what had happened. I sat them down and told them the truth. I told them about who I was before. I told them about the violence, the crimes, the betrayals. I told them about the Federal Bureau of Investigation, about my testimony, about why we'd had to leave everything behind and start over. My daughter asked me a question that I'd been avoiding for 5 years. "Dad," she said, "are you a good person now?" I thought about that question. I thought about Admiral Mitchell. I thought about all the people I'd hurt. I thought about all the testimony I'd given. I thought about the life I was living in Portland, the normal life, the quiet life. "I'm trying to be," I said honestly. "Every day I'm trying. And that's all any of us can do." That night, as I lay in bed next to Morgan, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from having resolved everything, because nothing was really resolved. Not the kind of peace that comes from absolution, because I didn't deserve that. But the kind of peace that comes from living with integrity, from telling the truth, even when it costs you everything. From trying to be better, even when you know you can never fully escape who you were. And now, I want to ask you, my friends, where are you watching from? What city? What country? I'd love to know. Drop it in the comments below. And tell me, what kind of stories do you love? Are you drawn to betrayal and redemption like this one? Do you love stories of quiet justice, where the real victory isn't revenge, but truth? Do you prefer dramatic revenge tales, or do you prefer emotional journeys like this? Let me know in the comments, because your feedback shapes the stories I bring to you. I read every single comment, and I use your preferences to create the content you actually want to watch. If you love this story of redemption, quiet justice, and the power of truth, please hit that like button and subscribe for more thrilling, epic revenge, and amazing character-driven stories just like this one. Until next time, when we dive into the next incredible tale of betrayal, survival, and the choices that define us. Keep watching, keep commenting, and I'll see you in the next story. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about Victor's journey. And thank you for reminding me that storytelling matters.